Welcome, everyone. I'm Cylindrin Buller, your host of Uplifting Humans. Our guest today is Karen Edwards Fu, a Bioenergetic Synchronization Technique practitioner and owner of Center for Health Alliance in Fresno, California. She holds a master's degree in marriage and family counseling. Mother to a 23-year-old, Karen is here to share her journey in and out of a relationship. Welcome, Karen. How are you?
I'm fine, and thank you, Cylindrin, for including me in this process.
Oh, well, we're just so delighted that you accepted our invitation. I was so looking forward to this conversation all weekend. So share with our audience, Karen, about your background and the lessons that you've learned.
Okay, where to begin? Well, first of all, I am 64, and I was 41 when I had my daughter. I guess we'll start there. And she was absolutely just a miracle. I was never able to get pregnant, but I underwent some treatment that enabled me to conceive a child, and that was really exciting.
Mm.
And the method that I used was Bioenergetic Synchronization Technique. And I loved experiencing the process so much that I really wanted to learn how to do it. And so several years later, I did become certified and utilize that practice in my business today. So in and out of relationship.
Yes.
I was married for a number of years, and like many people, you kind of outgrow situations. And so though it was very difficult, I ended up deciding to split from my husband. And I think my daughter was about 7 at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And though it wasn't something that he really wanted to do, we were mature enough to be able to come together and do everything we had to do to support her situation. You know, we wanted to keep her life as normal as possible and both still be involved and keep any issues we may have together away from the situation. And
How
so
old would she have been at the time, Karen?
she was about 7.
About 7. Now,
Yeah.
with your background as a marriage and family counselor, do you feel or find that it makes a difference, at 7? Would it have been better if it was later? Like, explain that part of it. I'm sure you have those questions going through your head as well, even though, you weren't in the most comfortable position. And, obviously you want to create an environment of harmony and peace within the household.
I would say earlier is more ideal than later. And, every situation is a little bit different. The
Mm-hmm.
child's temperament and their particular relationship with each parent is a factor to consider. Um, Funny story about her in the situation, she set both of us down one day, and after we told her that we were going to live separately, and she just started firing questions at both of us. She sat down on this little secretary chair, and she had a pad and a pen, and she says, "Okay, Mom, why do you want to get divorced?" And then she asked me these questions, and then she just cut me off and went over to Dad. "All right, Dad, why do you want to get a divorce?" And after she had had enough, she sort of got up and she ran to the other room, and she says, "You guys are ruining my life."
Oh, wow.
And it was very painful to
Mm,
put her in that position.
mm.
But that was an issue that we were able to deal with, and eventually she worked through those issues. But it does change everybody's life, no matter what age, how agreeable you might be. It is a change, and people have to learn how to adapt.
So in your eyes, it was you're weighing what in your mind when you're making that decision. You're probably obviously weighing in the fact, okay, how is this affecting our environment on a day-to-day basis? You're probably thinking of all sorts of things. Can you maybe walk us through some of those struggles that you would have had before you made the big decision?
Well, first of all, I mean, I'm a product of a divorced family. My parents divorced when I was 18 months old. And not only did they divorce, but it was a very high conflict situation.
Mm-hmm.
And it was very frightening to me as a child. So I never wanted to go there with my own family. I tried to avoid it like the plague as long as I could. But, you know, sooner or later, you have to come to the realization that you deserve to have a life too.
Yes.
And what I found myself doing was making sure everybody else was happy, you know, being overly responsible for everybody but
Mm-hmm.
myself. And I forgot about myself. I lost myself.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, it was kind of like a life or death situation. I had to choose me for the first time in my life. And, you know, in my situation, I was fortunate that my husband was also in the helping profession. And, you know, we just sat down and said, hey, you know, I'm not happy. He's not happy. What can we do about this?
Yes.
The other thing about my background that's probably important to know is that um, I worked as a family law paralegal for a number of years. So
Yes.
I've done more divorces than I can count at this stage of the game. I did that for a number of years before I became a marriage and family therapist.
Mm-hmm.
And so um, not only was I a family law paralegal, but I did my part of my internship toward my hours as a licensed therapist as a child custody evaluator. And
Oh,
so
wow.
I've seen it all. And coming from my own personal background, I
Mm-hmm.
was really sensitive, and I made it a point to work with parents that I saw during my days as an evaluator to kind of enlighten them to, you know, this isn't about you. This is about your kids.
I agree.
And unfortunately, there are a lot of people who go through that process that don't have the maturity and are so fearful of life and feeling like everybody's out to get them that they're not able to set aside their own needs for the
Mm-hmm.
greater good for the whole family situation. The other thing that happens in that dynamic is all the kids are treated the same. It's like there's a one size fit all. And quite honestly,
Mm-hmm.
a child's temperament, their connection, their age sometimes dictates a different arrangement with each parent. And that doesn't happen in this day and age most of the time. And so it's so when I worked as a therapist, I found myself working with parents and children who have been through divorce, you know, a lot of the time,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and helping families where one parent was trying to alienate the kids against the other one, and how do you handle that? And you know, it's a very
That's a tough one.
complex process.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Now,
Mhm.
you had said earlier that it's easier when the child is younger. Um, why do you feel that it's, or why do you know that it's easier if they're younger? Because your daughter, to me, in my eyes, she's 7. That's awfully young, you know.
Yeah.
But you're thinking that it might have been, you know, better if it was, even if she was younger.
Well, in my opinion, I think she was kind of like approaching the outer edge where it's okay. Because at this stage of the game, developmentally, they don't really know, um, they don't have allegiances like you do when you get into the preteen area. And
Right.
when you get into that area, you know, you kind of know it all, and you know this is right and this is wrong before you really have enough knowledge to be able to make those conclusions. And
Mm-hmm.
so they're still, you know, relying on the parents at that age to make some decisions and choices and to guide and direct them. And
Mm-hmm.
they're still learning a lot of those things. And so it's just a personal,
Personal take on it. Okay.
based on, my experience working with kids when they get into their teens, or adult children have a horrible time whenever their parents, they end up feeling like, oh my God, my whole life is a lie,
Mm-hmm.
and so it's just, every age has an impact, but the fallout, that the child needs to deal with is different at each stage, I think.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And what about the blame game? Do you feel that they blame themselves more so as they get older?
Oh, there's a whole body of research that talks about, in fact, there's a great book. um, I can't think of the name of it right now, but what's really nice about this book is it goes by every single developmental age, how it affects, this age group, what kind of conclusions they draw,
Mm-hmm.
and and how you can best support that child in that particular age group. It tells you when to start dating and how to introduce, and it's all about how to avoid further impact on children.
Mm. Well, that would be a very interesting read, definitely. Now, working with people for so many years, Karen, what's a life lesson that has stuck with you all these years?
Well, um, I think most people would come in to see me because they wanted to try to make sense out of their life,
Mm-hmm.
wanted to understand themselves better. They're not understanding why their relationship sucks, and why can't they get a job that they really want. And so from that perspective, knowing yourself is like the number one thing that we all need to figure out. And,
Mm-hmm.
and I think there are ways to go about doing that. But, if you don't know yourself, you're not going to be able to trust yourself very, very much. And you're probably not going to set appropriate boundaries with other people because you want them to like you and you want to please people. You want everybody to be happy. And so self-trust, setting boundaries, knowing yourself, those are some major keys, I think, to moving forward in life, um, to be happy and to be satisfied in relationship.
So those are the keys to a happy life in your eyes. And I know for myself, I know some of what bioenergetic synchronization technique is. But for our audience that's listening today, Karen, can you explain that a little bit further?
Well, toward the end of my therapy career, I realized that people have patterns and they get stuck in these patterns.
Mm-hmm.
And what I love about bioenergetics is it's a simple hands-on procedure that restores communication between the higher brain centers and the physical body, and also can neutralize negative thought patterns and replace them with a more positive thought pattern. And and so if you have a challenge, um, you can learn about these things, because a lot of times your subconscious is what's really running your life.
Mm-hmm.
Most people are unaware of some of the control that our subconscious thoughts have on our activities in life.
Mm-hmm.
And so raising a person's awareness to those things and showing them while they're on the table how a certain thought can lock up their body and make them tense, and how it feels whenever you let that go, through the process of BEST, which is Bioenergetic Synchronization Technique. We kind of help your body remember how to relax.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Is it very similar to EFT or any of the acupuncture, acupressure modalities that are out there? Is it quite similar to that?
Well, I always teach my clients EFT because people need a take-home tool. It's a self-help, self-soothing tool that when you have emotions that are hard to manage, it can help you calm that down and get to more of an objective perspective on things. Best is it's it's similar, but it's a whole different, it's a different ball game.
Okay.
TFT or EFT, those kinds of things, you're doing that on your own. And there is, once you've been treated through the best process, there is what's called the mortar march. And this is something that you can do at home to sort of give yourself a neural emotional upgrade and to sort of put you back into a calmer state.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Now, share a decision, Karen, that you have made that changed your entire life for the better, but was difficult at the time because, there's so many decisions that we make on a day-to-day basis. And sometimes, we're not in a position to make that choice. Uh, but then all of a sudden, if you have enough willpower or enough understanding, then you step into that change. So share with us something that you have done.
For years, when I was a psychotherapist, I managed a contract for our local sheriff's department for like 15 years. And that was my main bread and butter.
Mm.
But toward the end of that time, I just felt this internal urge to shift my gears in some way, to do something different, and to sort of be free from that responsibility of that. I loved working with the population, but the responsibility was just getting a little overwhelming for me because I felt I needed to make a change in how I do what I do.
Mm-hmm.
So before I had another source of similar income restored, I chose to not renew my contract and to just have faith that I was following my heart and trust in the process of life that everything will work out. I didn't know how, but I was really banking on the fact that this was the right thing for me to do. So again, you asked me earlier, self-trust is so important.
Mm-hmm.
And being able to connect within yourself and feel that you're on the right path. And that's
Yeah, that
something
would have been a tough decision, definitely a tough decision, because even now in so many people's lives, making a decision where here's your bread and butter and you're giving that up
mm-hmm.
and you're going into the unknown. And the unknown is a very, very difficult place to be. And let's face it, we'd all be challenged with fear.
Oh yeah. Well, at that time, after I did that and my office lease expired, I moved my practice to um, a room I had in my house that had an outside entrance.
Mm-hmm.
And so I slowly built up a little bit more business there, but I had less overhead, of course, and found out that I really loved working out of my home, and people loved coming there. It was real relaxed, and it was really a nice transition.
And so tell us what motivates you, Karen. What keeps you going?
I've always been interested in helping other people, and I've been really curious about what makes people tick,
Mm-hmm.
and which kind of led me in the direction of studying counseling and psychology and things like that. But while working with people in that setting, I felt like I was shooting in the dark a lot of the times. We have people come in with problems and we have all these theories, and then there's these standards of practice and this and that and the other. And I found that to be very almost suffocating and restricted. And I figured there had to be some other way that I could help people discover things about themselves
Mm-hmm.
and work with them in a way that was more fun. for me anyway. And I was introduced to a process called blueprint numerology. And so I've recently studied that, and that modology really satisfies my curiosity. And it's exciting to be able to show somebody, hey, this is the lesson that you signed up for this lifetime. Gee, that's pretty exciting. You know, what can you do about that? How can you strengthen those challenges that you brought in with you? And what can you do to express your destiny?
Mm-hmm.
This really fits right in with, you know, my mission is to educate and empower people to take personal responsibility for their mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual health. And
So
so,
this is awesome. This is definitely something, I mean, if you have a passion and a drive that motivates you every day of your life and you want to work with people, you're doing awesome, awesome work. And on that note, you know, there must be something that overwhelms you even today, because we're always challenged with something. Share with us what that something in your life would be. What overwhelms you even today?
trying to find balance in life is always a ongoing challenge.
Mm-hmm.
Because, you know, once I sink my teeth into something that I really love, it's like I don't see anything else. It's like I'm just really focused on that, and I just love it. And I want to learn everything about it, and I want to tell everybody about it and do something. So my biggest challenge right now is to figure out, okay, how can I package this new exciting material and offer it to other people in the form of a workshop or something that will excite them as much as I feel excited about it. So that's my biggest challenge right now is working on putting those pieces together.
Mm-hmm.
And
I know for myself in the past, um, things that excite me and, you know, I want to share with people. Sometimes it's, you know, I find in my life, I'm so overly excited. And then on the receiving end, though, they don't feel the same. Have you ever faced that where it's kind of like, oh,
yes, because I've been down this road before in the past, and what I've learned is that slow down, be patient, because they're not at where you're at. They don't see the whole picture yet, and so you've got to help them meet them where they're at. You know,
mm-hmm,
in fact, when I was originally studying therapy, the practice of it, one of my mentors said, Karen, you need to pick people up at their house first before you take them to this destination that you would like to take them.
mm,
So learning to meet people where they're at, respecting, you know, what they're interested in and not cramming these things down their throat is so important.
mm-hmm.
And I think it's an art form, actually.
Yeah, and how were you able to instill some of what you've learned and what you've applied into your daughter's life? And I understand she's 23
Mm-hmm.
and she's an actor.
Mm-hmm.
And how have you been able to incorporate some of this into her life?
Well, I think what I did, as first of all, being a mom is the thing that I really wanted to be a mom all my life. And I was really so excited when I conceived her and then gave birth to her. I mean, it was the happiest time of my life.
Mm-hmm.
And then the main thing that was important to me being a mom was to give her the things that I think, the raw materials that she's going to need to grow up and to be able to move through life as an adult, contributing to society in some way, and to be happy. And so that was my overriding focus when I was her mom to begin with.
And
And so
at what age did you start with that?
birth, literally, I'm not kidding you. And I came upon these wonderful books called Real Love in Parenting.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God, that book was wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
And that book gives parents, I've recommended it to a lot of people, but it gives you permission to be the parent. Too often, parents want to be their kids' friends
Yeah.
way too early before you've earned the right to be a friend. And so by doing that, then you don't do the work of being a parent, which is sometimes very difficult.
Yes.
And so anyway, so I worked really hard to get her to trust herself, and actually she's a vibration 7, which is all about self-trust. And I didn't know that when she was growing up, but she would always ask me certain things, and I would say, "Honey, trust yourself. You have good instincts." And so I just drilled that into her, and really worked with her to express her feelings. One of the rules in our family was we tell each other the truth, no matter what. Even if you're afraid that you might get in trouble, or even if you're afraid we're not going to like or approve how you feel, you're still entitled to those feelings. And so we did really work with her on that. And I feel very proud of the young woman she's become, and she has successfully launched herself in the world and has been excited, fearful at times, naturally, but she's able to move through the fear and do it anyway. And she's happy, and I'm just so proud of her.
So you started at a very young age, and that's the key, is you don't wait until they're adults to have these conversations.
In fact, I remember, I was sitting in the rocking chair nursing her when she was just a newborn, and feeling really sad because I love that stage. It's so precious and beautiful. And
Mhm.
I realized right then and there, every developmental stage that a baby goes through is a sense of loss
Mhm.
and then a new opportunity. And I figured, I really need to get a grip on this sense of loss that I have
Yes.
all along the way, because I don't want to guilt her into staying home long after she should be out in the world doing things. And too many parents get their meaning in life by being a parent, and
Yes.
then have a hard time letting their kids go.
Yes.
And then kids pick up on that, and then they will they'll limit what they reach for because they're afraid to cause you some sort of sense of loss or whatever. They want to take care of you.
Of course, of
So,
course. And so, your life is your life, and
right.
you owe nothing to anyone. And if you choose to be there, that's the key. If you choose to be there, that is entirely up to you, but not because you are guilted to death, or whatever the situation is. Now, on that note, what is your greatest strength as a mother and the most challenging weakness, Karen?
Oh, let's see. My strength as a mom, I think, is that I'm there for her no matter what.
Mhm.
And yet, I'm able to set a little bit of a boundary, like, okay, I need to take care of myself here. And so that is I think that's a strength for me. Um, and then my weakness, I think I've always wanted to do too much.
Mhm.
Maybe, and so I'm learning to back off a little bit and give her the space to do for herself. But I think that was an ongoing challenge for me to um, maybe to want to be included in her life a little bit more than she would like me to be some of the time. And to her credit, she kind of told me when to back off sometimes.
That's great parenting, right?
So it's like,
That's great
okay,
parenting.
okay, I get it. I wasn't getting it, but now I get it.
Yeah. And being a parent to an only child, it requires special skills as well.
Mhm.
When you have more than one child, can you touch on that as well as a marriage and family counselor as well?
I can't touch on that from personal experience because honestly, I was so old when I had her. I don't know that I could have handled another child.
I'm going to stop you right there. You were 41 when you had her.
Yeah.
I'd like you to know that there are many people starting their families at that age now. And
Hmm.
so it's the new norm.
Yeah.
And you know what? You were the right age now to have her.
Oh, it was
But
clearly the right age for me at the time. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And so being an only child parent, what were the special skills you felt that you really needed to have or to watch? Make sure you didn't, like you said, create a suffocating relationship.
Well, I felt it was very important for her to have a sense of family. There's
Hmm.
just the three of us,
Yes.
And so I was extra lenient than a lot of parents, I think, as far as letting her go and do things with her friends who may have siblings who, um, I mean, to this day, we celebrate with one of her longest friends and their family Christmas every year together. We've done that for years. But now that she's living in another state, we haven't been doing that, but I've continued. So I wanted her to have a sense of, since she didn't have siblings, a sense of family. And her cousins are all much older than her, so they weren't around. And
Hmm.
so I wanted her to have that experience. So I let her go more than I would like to have let her go. I mean, I would love to have had more of that at our place, but we had a nice mix of that. I think so.
Yeah.
That was the major only child concern that I had.
Hmm. Hmm. I have a number of friends that were the only child.
Mhm.
And I think the greatest complaint that I ever heard was that the expectations from them were far beyond what they ever imagined.
Hmm.
Because they were the only one, they had so many things to fulfill as the only child. So,
Mhm.
they had to become the musician, the artist, the studious student,
Mm.
almost like this perfect child in every which way because they were the only one who could fill all the shoes.
I took a very different approach than a lot of parents do, and it's because I learned about natural talents. A friend of mine named Curtis Adney wrote a book about that, and he can help you discover what your natural gifts are.
Mm,
And one of the things that I learned is that kids at a very early age will start to exhibit what their talents are and what their passions are
mm,
very young. And so I I never said, "Oh, you have to take piano, you have to take ballet, you have to do this, you have to." I never did that to her. I was disappointed when she wanted to quit certain things along the way because she was really good at it, but it hasn't hurt her at all.
isn't that great?
And I just, in fact, I talked to a lot of parents. I said, one activity, come on.
Yeah,
Kids need downtime. They are a human being, not a human doing.
that's right.
And
That's
so I didn't do that to her.
And so she's a successful actor. Tell us a little bit about her.
Well, right out of college, she's been acting straight out of college. She did a few shows in Utah at the Shakespeare festivals, and then one day she has great agents,
Yes.
and one day she got a call saying that she booked Mean Girls. So
Mm,
she is actually a standby, which is a great introduction to being on Broadway.
yes.
She doesn't have to perform every show, but she's got the whole experience. And so she's for two roles. She's standby for Regina George and for Gretchen Wieners in Mean Girls. And
Is
it's playing until next August, and it's a great show. I
wow.
think I'm probably going to go back in April to see it again, and she is clearly in her element.
Isn't that wonderful?
Yeah.
Yeah.
She's
Well, congratulations to both of you because I know it's not done just by them. If it wasn't for the great support from the parents, sometimes children are not able to just get to where they really want to get to in life. So that's awesome. Now, if if someone in our audience wants to reach you, if they'd like to contact you, Karen, how would one go about that? Can you let our audience know?
Well, at this time, the best way to connect with me would be my email address, which is kfumt@gmail.com. I will
And
have I'm working on my website right now. It will be something to do with Center for Health Alliance. Hopefully I will launch it early April with my new programs.
wonderful. And we will definitely have you back on the show. Around that same time, so that if someone's missed this particular episode, we'll have Karen back and just give us an update. And hopefully, you'll be available. I know that your schedule is awfully busy, but just really, really enjoyed having this conversation. I want to thank you, Karen, for sharing your journey with us here at Uplifting Humans. I'm Cylindrin Buller, your host of Uplifting Humans, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Thank you, Karen.
Thank you, Solyndran.